Good morning, Bears. Today we will take a look at some of the questions from the English section of the ACT. Remember that this section focuses on testing students' knowledge of conventions of standard English, knowledge of language, and what they know about the production of writing. In addition, don't forget that many of the skills in the ACT English section that are assessed are also necessary for success on the ACT reading. Students should also remember that it might be a good idea to consider getting a copy of the Elements of Style, which is an excellent manual for improving one's skills in grammar and usage. One thing I'd like to mention is that many students are actually already familiar with one of the book's creators, E.B. White. Students who have read Charlotte's Web or Stuart Little have read Mr. White's works before. We will actually use rule number 1 from this book as we analyze the best way to answer one of the questions from the recent Case 21 Practice ACT that the juniors took a couple of weeks ago. If you have a copy of the practice test, turn to page 8 of the English section and look at question number 49. In addition to offering the choice to leave this sentence alone and make no change, students have the options of 3 ways to revise the sentence to make it more clear to the reader or to demonstrate a student's knowledge of how language works. In this case, students need to know that this question calls to light whether students know the difference between informal, colloquial use of language compared to that of formal writing. Let me explain. Colloquial language means the language that people use on a daily basis. Some people might call it slang or casual language. However, in the case of writing an essay or an article like the one to which the question is referring, one should use more formal language and structures. In other words, when writing for an audience that goes beyond friends and people with whom one communicates on a daily basis, one should employ a more conventional style, which means, in colloquial terms, stick to the rules of grammar and usage. One of those conventional rules that comes up on English tests from time to time is a rule about putting prepositions at the ends of sentences. In the Elements of Style, it says the following. Years ago, students were warned not to end a sentence with a preposition. Time, of course, has softened that rigid decree. This means that though the rule is not as strict as it once was, there are still those out there who consider it bad style to end sentences with prepositions. Therefore, one should avoid putting prepositions at the ends of sentences in formal writing, which is what the ACT is looking for. Do you know what to do in formal writing? The ACT will test whether one knows how to structure formal writing. Look back at the sentence to which question number 49 refers. It says, sports are something everyone can find enthusiasm in. Notice how it has the word in, a preposition, located at the end. Here's a side note. For those who don't remember what prepositions are, they are words that show location. Words like in, over, under, on, beneath, at, to, between, etc. The words for, with, and of are also prepositions. If these words appear at the ends of sentences on the ACT, one might want to look more closely at those sentences to see if they can be reconstructed to move the preposition away from the end, which is what one needs to do in question number 49. Notice that option D has in at the end, and option C has it at the end of a clause. Both of these can be modified to where the preposition is moved away from the end of the clause or sentence, which occurs in choice B. Remember, the ACT is not testing whether students can identify ways people speak. It's testing to see whether students know how to structure and use language in formal writing. Flip over to page 9 of the English section. Read paragraph 4 with me. Sepak takraw, which came from Asia, is like volleyball except the players must use their feet to get the ball over the net. Although one would not think it, this sport actually began over 200 years ago in Thailand, and numerous countries have their own versions of the game with similar names. As a result, it's being considered as a possibility for an upcoming Olympic sport. One can see that item 55 from the practice test was underlined, and the vast majority of students who took the practice test answered that one correctly. Most students recognize that there was a simple case of using the wrong word there, T-H-E-R-E. They recognize it should be the possessive form, T-H-E-I-R, not the pronoun form, T-H-E-R-E, and not the contraction for they are, which is T-H-E-Y''-R-E. Make a note that homophone usage will pop up on the ACT, so be sure to reread and check the sentences to make sure that the correct forms are used. Now, look at question 56. Go back to the sentence. It says, although one would not think it, this sport actually began over 200 years ago in Thailand. There are a couple of skills that students will need to apply in order to answer number 56 correctly. One skill needed is to know not to use second person in formal writing. Do not use second person pronouns in formal writing. In other words, do not use you. Teachers often point out that quite frequently. They often tell students, do not use you in formal writing. Therefore, students can eliminate both choices B and D. This leaves the choice of whether to change a sentence to however one would or to leave it although one would. However and although are similar words in that they are used to show contrast with other ideas. However, the difference between them lies in where the contrasted idea is located. When using although, the contrast comes within the same sentence because although is what's called a subordinated conjunction. That means a clause that begins with although cannot exist on its own as a sentence, and that would have to have another clause with it. The word however contrasts something from a previous sentence or clause. Look back at the sentence. The contrast comes from the fact that someone might not believe how long ago the sport started, and that information is contained within the same sentence. It does not refer to something back to something from the previous one. Therefore, although is the correct word, not however. When one puts it all together, the sentence is correct as it is written, and therefore no change should be made, and the correct answer is A. Now look at question number 47. To correctly answer item number 57. To correctly answer item number 57, one can employ the plug-in technique, which means just look at the options and just plug it into the sentence. However, we'll look at it a little more in depth. When evaluating choices for answers, sometimes it helps to reread the sentence and plug in those choices. Will the no change option work? Students might argue that it sounds right and stop there. However, they'll get the answer wrong because sounds right is never an effective argument when it comes to grammar and usage in English. Read the sentence the way it is written. As a result, it's being considered as a possibility for an upcoming Olympic sport. That sounds right, but it's wrong for a couple of different reasons. Reason number one is that the sentence contains the possessive form of its. It, its without an apostrophe, implies that it's showing possession. It's not doing that in this case. Therefore, its, is wrong and one must change it. The other form of its, is a contraction that means it is. One could use that form of its here. However, one must remember that this is formal writing. Have students ever heard from teachers, do not use contractions in formal writing? That's a common error that students make, and here is where that error is made. Now that one has realized that it in this sentence is used incorrectly because it is written as a possessive when it should be it is, he or she can probably make an educated guess that D is the correct answer, which it is. However, one must still check the other options to ensure that he or she has the correct answer. Look at B. This does not work because because the word this is a demonstrative pronoun, which means it acts like an adjective and should have a noun to modify with it. This does not have a noun with it, so B does not work. Notice that option C, it was, could be a viable choice because it was is simply the past tense of it is. However, think about what teachers have said about tense in writing formal essays. Use present tense. Also notice that the first sentence uses present tense. Sepak takraw, which came from Asia, is like volleyball. Make sure that all tense is aligned in the sentences in the paragraph. In this case, make sure that the tense in the third sentence is the same as it is in the first and second tense. Therefore, one must utilize it is. Last week, students evaluated item 61 from the practice test, which focused on the pronoun error in sentence 1. Question 2 also refers to an error in sentence 1 of the article. Reread the sentence, but this time plug in the word one for many. It should say, one may have seen them in a grandparent's attic or in a mom's or dad's old box of memories, those thin, round vinyl records. This time, the question arises of whether the author correctly uses apostrophes to show possession. Take a look at the first page from the Elements of Style. This rule is on page 1 of the book. The fact that this rule comes from the very first page should let somebody know how important it is, or how often people make errors with it. Notice that it says, form the possessive singular of nouns by adding apostrophe S. Now look at the examples. You have Charles's friend. That's Charles S apostrophe S, Charles's friend. Burns's poems. Even if it ends in that S, you put an apostrophe S. You only put the apostrophe after an S when it's dealing with plurals. Look at the witch's malice. W-I-T-C-H apostrophe S. It shows possession. Whose malice? The witch's malice. Now, let's go back and look at question number 57. The rule from the Elements of Style states, form the possessive of singulars by adding apostrophe S. Notice in this sentence it says a grandparents. How many grandparents are present in that sentence? One. A singular grandparent. A grandparent. Okay, so that's a singular noun. So it only needs an apostrophe S. How many moms? Just one. How many dads? Just one. Therefore, in all of these cases, only an apostrophe S is needed. Look at the choices. B and D both have the word grandparents with an apostrophe after the S. Plural. That would be correct if writing about something belonging to more than one grandparent. But the word A appears before it, so it's only referring to one grandparent, a singular grandparent. Look at C. The fact that the attic belongs to the grandparent indicates that this is possessive and that the writer should do something to demonstrate possession, which is done, like what it says in rule number 1 of the Elements of Style, by adding the apostrophe S. Therefore, one should not change the sentence. Be sure to always look for little tricks like that. The possessive, where the S goes and the apostrophe goes, comes up quite frequently. Remember, if it's plural, the S apostrophe. If it's singular, apostrophe S. Even if the word ends in S. Look back to the rule with like Charles's. As students prepare for the ACT English section, it's a great idea to go back and look at the notes that their teachers have written on essays. If teachers have made notes about students putting prepositions at the ends of sentences, or using contractions in formal papers, or using second-person pronouns, you, in essays, or mixing up where the apostrophe goes when showing possession, those students should take the time to evaluate their own writing and determine ways they can improve it, because that's what they'll be doing on the ACT section. They'll be looking at other writers' works and seeing how to improve it, or if there are errors made in grammar and usage and just the conventions of standard English. Taking all that information into account will not only improve students' chances of scoring higher on the ACT, it will improve their writing in all areas.